Hello and welcome back. This time we'll be talking about functions. Now we've actually been using one function the entire time, and that's the main function. And this is exactly how you define a function. You use def for define, space, the name of the function, and then you put parentheses around whatever you want to be bringing in, whatever variables, whatever pieces of data you want to bring in. So let's define a different function so that we can play with variables a bit more. Let's define, let's call it loop items. And it will bring in argv. It's a legacy variable name coming from argument variables. And what that's going to hold is actually a list. And what we're going to send into this particular function is exactly why I imported system up there. I'm going to do sys.argv. Now what argv is when we run this from the command line, this program from the command line, anything that we send into it from the command line, or that the operating system sends into it, it all goes into this argv list. Now the very first item in that list, or the 0th item in that list, is going to be the name of the program itself. So if we wanted to just print the name that we're calling this program, we can do that. Let's go ahead and get our shell back. I've already made it executable. So there we go. Now if you notice, if I add more things past this, it doesn't actually show those. But that's what we actually want, is to be able to see quite a few things. We want to loop through all of the items in our argument list. So let's start off by telling the user what we're doing. We're looping through, and go ahead and tell them how many items are in the list. Now what I'm doing right here is what's called a formatted string. And so you notice I'm putting this %i, which is a placeholder for an integer, and this %s, which is a placeholder for a string. So then we do that inside of the string, or format, and then we put a % after that, and then we put parentheses, and inside of this we define the tuple that defines what needs to go into these placeholders. So the first one, if you recall, is the length, or len, of the list. So len is a built-in function that will get the length of any collection. So that'll set our I. And what I wanted, the reason why I put I put items, and what I meant to do is put item, because what I want is to actually make this intelligent enough to where, instead of it just blindly saying items and maybe it's only one item, to make it to where it will put an S if the length of argv is greater than 1. Otherwise, or else, it will just send back an empty string. Let's verify. Yep, okay. So this is, notice I put parentheses around that. That's to segment off this piece of code so that we can make sure that it sees this as one whole variable that is getting defined at runtime based on this length. Okay, so just real quick, let's see that in action. So this should theoretically have 3 items, and so it should say looping through 3 items. And it does. Now if we go and we just write, it should be item, 1 item. Perfect. Okay. Pull that back up. Now, we've got our header. Now we want to loop through each one of these items. So what we're going to use is called a for loop. And the way that it works, or the kind of the easiest way that you can do it, if you don't care about the index, is that you can say for, and then you name the variable that's going to contain an individual item. So arg, or argument, in argv, which is our list. And then again, we're defining a new code block. We're going to define a code block that's going to run for each one of these args. So what's going to happen is it's saying for each one of the items in this collection, this argv list, we're going to step through each one of them, and for each step, whatever the current element that we're on, or item that we're on, is going to be set equal into this arg variable. So it's going to run the code in this block for each one of those items. So in this case, all we want to do is just print that argument. All right, and then at the end, we make sure to take out that initial indentation, because at the very, very end, we want to put some sort of differentiation between our list and whatever comes printing after that. All right, so let's see that in action. And this time we're going to go with the 3 items again, just so there's a little bit more to see. So you'll notice we say looping through 3 items. We have the first item, which is the name, the second item, the third item, and then our end. So, and all of that is getting called from our main function. So our main function comes in, immediately calls this function, which it passes in the system's argv, or what we're actually sending in from the command line into this function, and there it is. So another interesting thing about functions in Python is that they can actually have multiple return values. So for instance, let's say you wanted to define an add function that not only returned the sum, but also gave you back the values that you were summing together as well. So you could say return, and the first thing we want to return is the sum that we're expecting, but then comma delimited any number of variables we want to send back. So the sum, and then x, and then y. And then so if we do this up here, we can go ahead and take, so if we just set a single variable that we'll call full sum equal to this, what'll happen, and we'll say add 10 plus 123. Sure. All right, so let's watch what happens when we do that. Oh, I didn't print anything. That might be helpful. Let's see what's inside of full print, or full sum. All right, so you'll notice that it's sending back a tuple, denoted by the parentheses, containing our sum, and then the x, and then the y. But let's say that we want to get those as individual components. Well, if you recall, we can set multiple variables at the same time. So what we can do is do sum, but you know what, this time I don't really care about the x. So I'm going to put an underscore for that, and again, don't really care about the y. So I'm going to put an underscore for that. And again, we're going to add 10 plus 123, and this time, we'll just print sum. And you'll see it's the sum, and as an integer. So, as you've seen, we can send in any number of variables, and we can return any number of variables. And that's kind of the beauty. One of the beautiful parts about Python is everything is very dynamic, and it's a very malleable language that lets you define functions that are very powerful. We've seen the for loop, the for in loop, that you'll use tons of times. We've seen how to get the length. I hope this is helpful. Please leave any comments or questions below, and I'll be getting back to you as soon as possible. Have a great day.